Okay, there we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Between Two Teachers, place where we talk about the current issues in education, good and bad. Today is Friday, February the 4th, and my name is Consuelo Lara.
And I'm Madeline Cronenberg. And I'll begin, as always, with our land acknowledgement. And we pause to acknowledge that we have gathered on the ancestral territory of Hui Chin, which is part of the unceded land of the Chochenyo and Karkin-speaking Muwekma Ohlone people. We remember their continued connection to this region and give thanks to them for allowing us to live, work, learn, and pray on their traditional homeland. We offer our respect to their elders and all Ohlone people of the past and present. And so onward we go to today. So today, I'm going to talk first about what's happening in throughout the country. And there are a lot of things happening in education. And one of the most interesting one is in Oklahoma. So there are many bills now that are coming out to restrict teachers and what they can teach. Florida certainly is one of the leaders. Governor DeSantis is a strong believer in restricting teachers. And there have been states that have put bounties, essentially, where they have hotlines that if your teacher says something that you think is inappropriate, and all that what we're talking about is essentially, this is all connected to how you teach about the racial history of America and the incredible problems that we have that were caused by racial strife and where we are today in the history of racial strife. And so the folks in what's this? The folks in Oklahoma have a new bill that will fine a teacher $10,000 for contradicting a student's religious beliefs. So it just follows along with these other bills. And what happens with every time that one of these kinds of bills become a law, they get duplicated in other states, right? A lot of them come from the same group of people who write bills, particularly for red states or states that get adopted by red states, the ALEC folks. And I'm not sure if this one came from there, but it certainly is. It follows in the footsteps of the other bills that restrict teachers. So, but this one in particular, contradicting a student's religious beliefs, is a really interesting path into breaking down any kind of separation between church and state.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there are very odd kinds of what people call religions. We cater to those, or, you know, it's just it's really odd. I just think it's odd.
And how challenging is this to be a teacher? So if you're a teacher in Oklahoma now, how intimidated are you going to be?
I mean, you can't teach anything cultural, really. Multicultural.
No.
Oh
No. I mean, and you think about it, when we just did the land acknowledgement, Oklahoma has a huge Native American population and a history all around that state and its relationship with the Native American community. And I don't know how you're going to, where that fits in with this bill.
Yeah, you don't teach that history. It's just bizarre. It is a very bizarre thing.
And it just shows where we are. This bill is just one more, part of the puzzle of where we are in America in terms of having some states that really have this kind of restriction. And so our children are going to be brought up with a very specific restricted set of information, and other states that are going to be much broader and teach what actually has happened.
Yeah, for sure. This is a struggle, for sure.
It is. It's going to polarize us more and more and more. But anyway, I just wanted to call out Oklahoma.
Okay.
The other one is, and I wanted to call out now, we talk about the big thing that's happening right now in education that's connected to the coronavirus and the pandemic is the vaccines and the mandates around vaccines. So we have passed the deadline for the first vaccine mandate nationally for children in schools. And that deadline is in New Orleans, which is so interesting because New Orleans is a all charter school district. But they have it. They have a requirement that everybody be vaccinated. But the one thing about their requirement that has to be pointed out is that they have a very easily accessible religious and philosophical exemption. So you don't have to go through any kind of hoops to get it. You can just essentially, from what I understand, you can just claim it. And that's that. Then you don't have it. But on the other hand, they have a much higher vaccination rate in the city of New Orleans than they do in the rest of the state. And there hasn't been big opposition to this mandate.
No. So different every parts of the country. So
and that one is different because what they said in that case was that it came bottom up because they don't have a school board. They don't have the same operation. They have these different networks because they're charter networks. Some of the charter networks only have 1 or 2 schools so that there is the opportunity for the teachers at the schools to have a voice in this. These are teachers who are not union. It's interesting. They're not unionized.
That's right.
Right. So, you know, that they're a real, they suffer from low pay and not having a stability and tenure. But the flip of that is they can also say, I'm going to leave.
Yeah. There's no contract, so I'm gonna just.
Right. Just like you can fire me, I can leave.
Yeah. There you go.
Right. And anyway, the understanding I have is that it was a bottom up kind of thing. And so that made it easier for people, no one who isn't, people weren't going to fight it, and including the parents.
Interesting.
Because you could just check the box and get out of it if you really wanted to.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So that's, that's that. Now vaccine mandate in Los Angeles has been put over to August, right? They have lifted theirs and they're not going to enforce it. And in West Contra Costa, they're still talking about it.
Yeah. West Contra Costa likes to just have a blind eye to things sometimes. So we're just going to ignore it. Maybe it'll go away.
Well, the problem we have is that they're not going to be able to make it so to have the exemption, because this is California. You can't operate the exemption the same way. And the thing they originally passed didn't include an exemption. So that's number one. So what it said was that you were going to have to go, if you were not vaccinated, you would have to go into alternative learning, right? To independent study or virtual learning.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have it. They don't have the staffing to support you.
Nope.
Right. And until they can figure out a plan to have that, to accommodate these students, then they simply have to, you can't enforce a mandate that you can't enforce.
So you just don't teach. So you just don't have education. Oh, gosh.
So they're continuing to talk about it. And what I hope that they start to talk about is what to do with the children. And this is something that was brought up by a student board member. And just it also makes tremendous sense, is that students who are in quarantine right now, there's 2 parts to this. Whether or not you get paid, the district gets paid. Well, if you're in quarantine, the district gets paid for you. But that doesn't have anything to do with the fact that you're not getting any kind of educational support, right? You're not able to get distance learning support because that has been removed by the legislature. They could simply give an emergency exemption and say you can have it, but they haven't. So the children who are in quarantine are all suffering learning loss because that learning loss was caused by the legislature.
Yeah.
Flat out.
That's it.
And so there needs to be something for them, and for the students, besides the ones who are in quarantine, the ones whose families are simply afraid to send their children back, because as you know, you can even have had COVID before, and still being in this setting, you can catch it again, or you can catch it and give it to somebody in your family who is vulnerable and really would suffer.
Yeah, you can, absolutely. So, you know, you can get it over and over again if you're exposed to it, continue to be exposed to it. So I don't know, you know, this independent study, I guess, I mean, there isn't any solutions out there or options. You don't have your administrators or your board saying, oh, here's one option to educate those children. Here's another option we're working on.
No,
They're not even discussing solutions to the
no,
kids that are not getting an education. It's just a blind eye.
right.
It's very
Right.
frustrating, very frustrating.
It's incredible. I mean, it just, if you know, when we started Between Two Teachers, if we talked about, well, 40% of the students are going to be absent and nobody's going to do anything about it, I would believe that.
No, that would never happen. Oh
Right.
my God, and here we are.
Here we are, and it is happening. So there's that. And the other big story here this week, we talked a little bit about last week, and of course it happened, is that there was the Oakland school district had their meeting on Monday, and it went till 3 a.m. on Tuesday. And at one point they had over 2,000 people on Zoom attending this meeting. Hundreds of people wanted to speak. And this has to do with school closures. And most of these schools are majority Black schools. These are schools that are low income schools. And there is a tremendous controversy around these closures. And among the many strategies now that people are using to try to keep the schools open, is today there's a student strike in Oakland. There are rallies. The Oakland City Council has passed a resolution. People are talking about, talking to Governor Newsom. And two of their teachers are at Westlake Middle School are on a hunger strike.
Hunger strike. Wow, that's what it's taking to get attention to this issue. Yeah.
Yep, that's what it's taking. And in West Contra Costa is another district that in the past had a hunger strike. And they called it the Fast for Education. They did a march to Sacramento. They did a march to Sacramento. And many people were involved in that march over several days. And then there were those who stayed there and did the hunger strike for 26 days, right? And that was to try to get a reduction in a state loan. And the thing, I'll just say this about the state loan, especially the Oakland state loan. Oakland, when the West Contra Costa issue happened, the state of California created something called FCMAT, which is a financial oversight organization, part of the state. They have overseen Oakland for 18 years. So why are they not responsible?
There you go. There you go.
They are nowhere are they. Is there any culpability for them?
Wow.
That is the amazing thing. It's not like, well, you've been here, we've paid you to come here and oversee this.
Yeah. So you failed, basically, what you're charged.
Right.
You failed.
Right. You failed. And who gets hurt? The children in these schools. After the district had passed a resolution that they all agreed to, saying they would not close the Black schools without at least doing an impact report. And in this case, they had less than 10 days. Ultimately, they wanted to give them less than 3 days.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They really wanted to sneak it through. Yeah. Very shady. Very shady. Ugh.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing.
Oh, God.
They're not on the same side. There really are two sides to this. And the school board's not, except for Mr. Hutchinson and Mr. Williams, they're on the wrong side.
Yep. They definitely are. Ugh. gosh,
So we'll see what happens there.
the ongoing thing. Ooh, it's a big
Yeah.
struggle. But,
Yeah.
Well, we kind of have the same thing going on in Contra Costa County. West Contra Costa teachers were trying to negotiate, and they were getting close to approving, the strike move. And they had very simple, basic demands, ones that they were promised at the beginning with the testing and the masks, and
This is all about COVID safety issues,
COVID
right? It
safety.
wasn't about closing schools or anything like that. It was
No,
COVID
no.
safety.
It was just about having safe schools to go and teach in. So they did settle that. And I have to say, shout out to the advocacy of that union, because they just, at the county office, we got emails describing people's situation in their particular schools, from high school, adult school, kindergartners, everybody, and then the same few demands. It was very
Right.
simple, very simple. And what I love about it is that they emailed everybody, and that's what you got to do. Don't listen to people when they say, well, I don't have anything to do with that. That's not my charge. If you're an elected, you don't have any business being elected if you're going to tell somebody that's not my job.
Because an elected's job, especially if you're elected in education, but actually, I mean, they could send it to the city councils as well, is advocacy for your constituents.
Exactly.
Right? And that's the big point. It's advocacy. So that means you figure out, if you're the one who's elected, then you raised your hand and said, I'm going to help figure out the solution.
Yes. I don't know
And
who does this,
tell
but
you-
I'm going to find out. And you and I
Right.
together, we're going to go talk to
We're
that
on the same
person.
team. I'm on your team. You elected me to be on your team.
That's exactly it. And we've got too many people saying, oh, that's not my job. So I was so glad to see that they just let everybody know. And I just want to keep telling people, that's what you got to do, that kind of advocacy, and I really feel for those students. Oh my gosh, they are screaming in the void about wanting to be educated, and nobody is listening from the top down. It's just awful.
Truth.
Oh, it's just really awful. I really feel it's just frustrating as can be. Like 40% of the students, now this was last week, who knows, it might have improved, were out, not coming to school at all.
That's another thing. They're not giving the absentee report.
No, they're not showing the real numbers. Yeah.
Not showing any numbers.
No, that's true.
So then
And-
you don't have to talk about it, right?
Yeah. And staff, we don't know how many of staff are out. We don't
Yeah.
have any idea of any of those things.
No, you just hear the anecdotal story. Oh, I only had 3 kindergartners in my class today. Oh, really? Right. Well, so that should be reported somewhere. We could know that so that we can help, so that people can address the issue and see that there are problems. But
Just
it's hard for folks to see that people are not going to just criticize you and try to make you wrong. They're trying to figure out ways to help you.
exactly. Yeah. So just keep those cards and letters and emails coming in, because that makes a difference. Speak up. Speak up.
Right.
Students, come on, students, start, that activism, because they are just ignoring you. And you would get a lot of support from the community. You really would. We do have student activists. I know that, that we could support and try to make a difference in this. So that's one big struggle we've got at the county. I'm also on the charter school committee. And so just a update, we are working on, this data report where people can see the financials of all the schools that we have and the charter schools, and really know where the money comes from and where it goes, especially in the big corporate ones, the big corporation that run charter schools.
Yeah, the real interesting thing, there are 2 things that are interesting about that. And this has nothing to do with the teachers, even the administrators, the staff that are on site, or certainly the families that send their children there. This has got to do with the business structure. right? And you have businesses, these, even though they are nonprofits, they can charge for their services. So you have operators, network operators, run a charter network, who will charge up to 15 to 17% of the money they get from the state to educate the children to them, to the home office.
To
Off the
spend
top.
any way they want, including big salaries.
Exactly, exactly, which is the reason why the highest paid person in education in the state of California is the CEO of Summit.
Yep.
Who gets more for running her little network than the superintendent of LAUSD.
Yeah. And
right? And how does that happen? That's because she gets to set her own salary.
yeah. And how much is that salary, or how much could it be?
Yeah, it's like $500,000.
Yeah, I figured it was around a $500,000. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's amazing.
And so the point of this is to just share that out. Let's share it out.
Just want the facts.
Right?
That's
It's
all.
like Transparent California puts salaries on of everybody who's a teacher. Everybody is paid by the state. These folks aren't paid by the state, but they in fact are getting paid with state money. Right? So that's one thing that is important for folks to know, just about how these operate, how these businesses that are state supported operate. And the other one is the real estate part.
Exactly. It's
'Cause
that.
that comes out of that child's money too.
Yeah, that's a big piece. And that's why the big money makers are in it, because they can finagle away. They end up with property at the end of it, even if the school closes. They have
Well,
got,
they end up with a lease that is underwritten by the district
yes. Ugh,
forever,
oh, these
right?
laws.
That they can pick a number, any number.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is something that is not something that people can easily find,
No.
but they can. That's what is so great about the Santa Clara data book, and any data book that you put together, then you know, and I'm not sure if Santa Clara actually has that in there, but it's on the forms that the schools put out. They're very long, complicated forms, but if somebody is given the task of taking those forms and making the information in them public, that's a slice of information that you can make public.
Oh, I think I could add that information.
Yes.
Ask them about property.
Right.
And
Everything
they own, they whatever. Yeah, who owns the property that they
and who's the CEO and how much is the CEO paid?
Oh,
What are the officer salaries? Just to say that. It doesn't have to be just the CEO.
officer salaries. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm
And
really
that's
looking forward to that.
public information that should be
Yes.
on there. And there's
Yeah.
no reason that, I mean, truthfully, we should all be proud of what we do. And Miss Tavener should be, I'm sure she isn't ashamed that she's making $500,000.
No, why would she be? No. of
Right.
course not.
Right.
So,
She set it up that way. So,
exactly.
Okay. But it's something we can all know. And for the folks that the other part, the real estate folks, that's important. It's important for people to know. There's nothing to be ashamed about, but it is something that really needs to be transparently disclosed, because it's a part of the picture that has been kept from the public.
Yes, yes. So I think there's going to be a lot of changes in the charter school area, a lot from the pandemic and just in general. I understand there's some legislations that are coming down also. We're gonna, in my legislative committee, we saw some that we'll bring those in and take a look at those. And I mean, this just, I don't make legislation. Nobody, I know writes it or passes it, and yet we have a legislative committee. So I can't say, oh, legislation, that's not my job. No, it is. It is my job to tell legislators, here's the direction we need to go. Here's the needs of my area or my.
Right. Your job is advocacy. It's right on in the job description on the website. What do board members do? Board members are politically active, and they are elected to advocate for their constituents.
And that makes
And-
everything in our purview.
And that's legislation. How do you advocate? You advocate by saying, I need this change, and that change is made through legislation. So you have to be aware of legislation to be a really thorough advocate.
Yes, that's it. That's where the power is. And that's what we need to use. So I guess that's all that I have.
Well, I think that's been a lot. It's been a big week in education again. And my big shout outs this week are, of course, again, to Mr. Hutchinson for his incredible work the other night, but also to the two members of the Westlake Middle School team from Oakland, who have decided to become hunger strikers for their schools. So the choir director, Maurice Andres Sanchez, and the community schools coordinator, Moses Omolad. Both of them are intense, sleeping in tents in front of the school, and are on a hunger strike to keep their school open, and as models to their middle schoolers to show them that when you believe in something, there are a lot of choices. Everybody doesn't have to do a hunger strike, but it is in fact a choice.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I think we are done for today.
We're done for today. We'll see everybody. We'll know more about the status of all of these things next week when we see you again on Between Two Teachers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.